Namaste. Welcome now to our 21st talk on the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has been talking about various qualities of those who are going to make success in spiritual life. So then, in the 22nd verse of the fourth chapter, content with what comes unbidden, beyond the pairs of opposites and free from envy, the same in success or failure, even though acting, he is not bound, meaning he creates no karma. Because there's no such thing, first of all, karma is in the mind, everything is in our mind. So physically acting does not create the karma. It's the mental action, the mental will, and the whole desire or whatever, because we act also to keep away from something, that put all together makes karma. Therefore, if a person can mentally and also emotionally, because desire is mostly emotion, if he can mentally and emotionally be, in a sense, at ease, unacting, then there will be no karma. And he's described these states, or aspects of the states. Okay, content with what comes unbidden. Well, everything comes from karma, but we don't remember the karma. And even though we set it in mind and say, well, that's my karma, something particular that intrudes itself on us occurs, it means not asked for by us in the sense of, well, I hope the sun will shine so I can go out and take a walk like I want to. So basically, in our experience, it just all happens automatically. Who comes to the door, who does not come to the door, where we go, what happens, where we get there, etc., etc. So it means that also he's content in that he is at peace because he knows this is a result of my action. It is inevitable. I cannot avoid it. I cannot stop it. And it isn't like I'm saying, oh, well, all right, let the truck roll over me. No, it means he realizes, especially, this is for my highest good, even if it's breaking a leg. And therefore, what comes is for good, and therefore I receive it. Doesn't necessarily mean I'll like it, but I'll receive it, and I won't resist it. Beyond the pairs of opposites. In other words, whether it's this, whether it is that, it doesn't bother him because, again, he knows this world is a manifestation of divine consciousness, and this is divine action. I'm living in a divine drama, and therefore I'm right where I ought to be. Free from envy, not thinking, oh, I wish I had that, because envy just doesn't mean to be jealous of a person. It means to covet something. The same in success or failure, knowing I did my best, and most important, all the while I did it, my mind was on God through the sacred japa. And even if I had a short-term desire, the greater desire was always there present, overshadowing and influencing everything. The desire for self-realization, for liberation. Though acting, he is not bound. People think, well, they've got to die and then they'll be free of it all. Then they die and they find they're not at all free of it all. They may go to a world where they have to face it even more than they did down here. All right, then. The karma of one who is free from attachment, and that means thoroughly free, and in the subconscious as well as the conscious. That's why meditation is so important, because it works in the subconscious simultaneously as it works in the consciousness or the conscious. Okay. The karma of one who is free from attachment, whose thought is established in knowledge, and knowledge means real knowledge, therefore means insight, spiritual insight that we have gained through our sadhana, our spiritual practice. Undertaking action for sacrifice. Sacrifice isn't good because very much, we think of it as sacrifice as mean giving something up. The word is yagya and means offering. In other words, you're offering it to God. You're saying, Lord, I need to go through this so I can progress and come finally to my true home, my true realm, which is you. So when we do that and have that understanding, and understanding at that I'm doing this to clear the karmas, to elevate myself, the positive things we do, study of spiritual writings, keeping of good spiritual company, and then especially meditation, we have a goal in mind. Excuse me. Then the karmas become dissolved because they become fulfilled. And since there's no desire for more, give me more, there won't be any more. It's really quite simple when you think about it. Then comes this 24th verse, which is recited by monastics every day before eating. It says, but it applies to a lot more than food. But the idea is, I'm eating the food not for myself, but so my body will take it in, its life will be prolonged, hopefully enhanced and strengthened, so I can go more and more toward God. This is the sole legitimate motivation for any action, actually, ultimate motivation, though there are short term attitudes. All right. Brahman is the offering. Brahman is the oblation poured out by Brahman into the fire of Brahman. In other words, I am really one with Brahman. And my action of offering to Brahman is not from my ego, but from my Atma, which is one with Brahman. And therefore, even my virtuous actions and my meditation are all being done by Brahman toward and in Brahman. Brahmamai, totally pervaded by Brahman. And that fire consumes what is material and refines and elevates and reveals what is immaterial until we come to the consciousness of pure spirit. Brahman is to be attained by him who always sees Brahman in action. In other words, we never lose sight of the purpose. We never lose sight of the goal. And at every moment we think, Brahmarpanastu. Brahmarpanamastu. This is offered into Brahman. And that takes a real state of consciousness. And it's not just positive thinking. its positive orientation of the whole mind and body action toward the absolute, not just something a little higher. So then he talks about, well, what are these offerings in a practical sense? Some yogis offer sacrifice to the gods alone. In other words, they make offerings, they do worship. When we say gods, it's the gods and also avatars of the gods, ritualistic worship. So, some yogis offer sacrifice to the gods alone, while others offer the self as sacrifice into the self, unto the self, into the fire that is Brahman. And this obviously is the ultimate yajna, the ultimate sacrifice. It is our self, our consciousness, that we pour into awareness of ourself, which then is merged in Brahman. First, we have consciousness of the world. So we go into meditation. We have consciousness of our lower self, and then of our higher self. And automatically, when the process of meditation continues, then our small self is offered into the supreme self. Soham yoga is absolutely the intended way, and is what is kept in mind whenever the great sages are speaking. That doesn't mean the other sadhanas don't purify and uplift, they certainly do. But this one does the job right on target, right in focus, and in unerringly. But practice will show that to you. That's the wonderful thing about Soham Sadhana. It teaches you, it teaches you, it itself teaches you about itself. That's not just poetry. Others offer the senses, such as hearing, into the fires of restraint. In other words, that's the way they offer. They don't let it function, or they don't let it fully occupy their field of consciousness and overshadow their own self-awareness. So when they look, they see, they look for positive things, they look at beautiful things, but they don't, it isn't like the nature lover that walks up and looks out over the valley and goes into rhapsodies. Oh, how beautiful, how wonderful. Not at all. This is why Guru Nanak wrote that song, Hey Hari Sundara, Oh God Beautiful. Yogananda made an English version of that with. And it describes mountains and rivers and oceans as a revelation of God. And the beauty of all that is really the beauty of God. The same, even if we listen to beautiful sound, say music. Any one of the senses, we can think, oh God, you're behind it all. And there's objects that absolutely we can't think of as God is behind it, although God really is. You know, watching people box and beat each other up and give each other brain damage and so on, that is not something that is an offering unto God. And it's a misuse of the power of God and a misuse of our senses. Some offer all the actions of the senses and the functions of the life force. The word is prana. That is the life energy that percolates through every cell in the body and keeps us functioning and, in that sense, alive. The life is much greater than that. And this is offered into the fire of yoga, of self restraint, which is enkindled by knowledge. So, also, not indulging the senses is an offering of the senses, saying, Lord, these senses belong to you alone. I'm not going to use them any more than I have to, so that my attention will go more and more to you, because the senses distract us, obviously. Those whose sacrifices take the form of yoga, by this it means sadhana practices. No, sorry, I'm skipping ahead of myself. Those whose sacrifices take the form of yoga, which gives us the control of these reactions and non reactions, offer material possessions and tapasya as sacrifices. In other words, some things we say, Lord, these are you, I give it in your hands. I'm not going to play with that toy anymore. I'm not going to be distracted by it anymore. I don't say it's evil and awful and sinful, but it takes my mind away. And that is a way these things are also offered. While ascetics with stringent vows offer self analysis and knowledge as sacrifice. The word is swadhyaya. It means study of the self. But the swa, you see, not me study, but I, the divine I, literally analyzes itself. And we say, there, that was when myself was present. That was when it was functioning. Now, in the depths of meditation, here I'm real. I have myself in His hands, and I say, therefore, Lord, unto you, may this self go to you, not me to say, oh, how wonderful I am and how great I am, and well, it's wonderful to realize I'm immortal. No, no, no. It is putting it where it belongs, back into God. Now, away from God and with God, there's a silly talk. How could you ever be separated from God? But in our consciousness and in our experience, even though it's a delusion, we believe in it. We must keep our mind in our own hands, like the reins when you ride a horse, in your own hands. And you have an idea, all right, we're galloping along, but down there is where I'm headed. That's where what I belong. So again, we analyze ourselves, we come to know ourselves. You see, we have to come to know our ignorance as well as our wisdom and be able to tell when it's sneaking up on us and may rob us of some spiritual advantage or even some spiritual um, experience. That all of these things, not evil in themselves, can become harmful when they intrude where at that moment they shouldn't be. Especially, say, as a meditation where suddenly we think, oh, did I forgot to turn the so and so off? We all have it happen. So, there are those who offer self analysis and knowledge as sacrifice. They don't just get the jnana. I remember one particular person who had been very much on the beam was really, I was quite impressed with when he started drifting off by trying to make his spiritual life an intellectual thing rather than a practical thing. Then one of the signs that things were going wrong with him was he'd say, oh, recently in meditation, the insights I'm getting are so intense and so profound. I mean, it's hard for me almost to even cope with it. What yourself is natural. So when you experience yourself, it isn't hard to cope with it. It isn't overwhelming. It isn't. In other words, he was playing with his mind, and he came up with these little Jnani, false intellectual ideas of principle, and he stopped being looking at God, but looking at other things and said, "Oh yes, I understand the profound implications of that." Yes, you see. In other words, he'd gone back into ego worship, and this then happened. But that wasn't knowledge; that was ignorance, and he ended up terribly. I mean, terribly. Something you and I don't want to ever have happen to us. But it can happen. You know, a, a sadhaka is very foolish who doesn't realize that he can't be tripped up at any moment. That he must realize he can be led astray at any moment. He can be distracted. And he can go into delusion. And that's the truth. And we're not scared, but we are aware that yes, I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm talking very high philosophy since it comes from the mouth of Krishna. But you know what? 2 or 3 days from now, I could be down in New Mexico in some beer joint, getting progressively drunk as I puff on some marijuana and am planning about the next filthy, indecent, and immoral thing I'm deciding to do. Look at me. Consider my age. I've been a sannyasi now for over 60 years. 4 days from now, I can be getting married to some honey that at last I realized I will not progress if I don't go through this karma and if I don't fulfill these previous life obligations. I promised her I'd marry her 10,000 years ago, but I ran away and jilted her, and now I have to make it up. Now you think, well, that's pretty silly and exaggerated. I've heard people say foolishness like that all my yogi life. So it can happen. I may be here today, but I can be gone. Forget tomorrow. I can be gone within the next 3 hours. We are, we shouldn't be afraid, but we should know we are in danger every moment, not from the devil and not from our karma, but from this thing and this thing. It can be. Well, I've gone over the time. Thank you. We will continue on from here, then in our next session.